start everything off. All right, so we're going to take another look at our 2A Resource Handbook. This is draft number 5. All right, so the fourth one just went out to G23. Not sure what's going to happen with this one. I guess I could maybe put this one out tomorrow. So maybe this one will go out this week as an incentive for sales over at our gear website store. So we're looking at draft number 5. It came out a little better. I don't have the other one. I already sent it off to G23, but the color came out a little better on this one. So I'm stoked that means the printer's not dying too bad, and I got a little better idea of how badly I have color correction issues. So I can get stuff laid out, I can get the information accumulated, and I can help to figure out which information to put in here or not. That's all pretty basic, but when it and I can draw the cartoons, I guess, at least trace over pictures. Problem is, there's some pretty bad issues with the way that it translates to color on the page. That I have not. I don't have any of those skills. So I'll be looking for some help on that. So let's dig in. This is draft number 5. At this point, we're looking at 120 something pages. The last couple of pages are just nothing. And then it's going to have an orange cover. I just am too cheap to print it in orange, so it'll be an orange cover with blue letters. I like the thick letters. Let me know if you think the thin letters will look better, but I'm going for a nice clean cover. The back will have the table of contents and not much more than our logos and the goal to get our Second Amendment into the hands, thoughts, and conversations in interesting new ways. So we do that by taking our Second Amendment, dividing it up between the laws, which incorporates the experience of a gun owner, as well as the community and the industry. Break the community up into the people and the organizations, and then the industry into the stuff that either creates us, our history, and then the places that we go and the events that we do. So opening it up, it talks about this book will be one of a companion to a second book that'll be done after this, if everything works. This will be the resources. The other book will be the skills. This first page explains our projects and what we're doing. Get back to the table of contents. This will be a bit of an introduction, but also an overview of our Second Amendment in 2021. Then we get to a timeline, a comparative timeline. We're going to compare different things like the Second Amendment issues, various ones, with some of the adversarial stuff and some of the societal stuff that happened along the way. This is going to be a more visual way to get across the various firearms laws. Then we list the firearms laws chronologically with an explanation. We've got our state firearms laws, still working on a way to help, again, visually represent the different levels or types of state infringements we might have, and some protections. Then we've got our state Second Amendments. Each state has its own Second Amendment, so we have them listed here along with the state firearms. Then we start talking about more local types of things like the preemption and sanctuary counties. We're going to add more to these pages as we go. We've moved the Supreme Court cases over to its own page to add a page for the circuit court cases. Obviously, there's a big one happening in California at the moment, and we've had lots of other potentials and big ones in the past. Then we get into the bans, still working on how to lay that out. We've got the information about enforcement, mostly ATF there. Then the gun owner's experience of owning a firearm, again, to kind of explain the section. And then we dig into safety, kids, the doctor's role in this whole thing, suicide, mental health, red flag laws, gun storage, deaths, marijuana and firearms, castle doctrine, stand your ground, carrying guns, and then we get in, well, carrying guns is the next section. So now we get into the experience of keep and bear arms, right? So constitutional, well, I don't have to read every section. We get into all the different issues, hopefully. And if you see something we're missing, let us know. Our goal is to get the entire Second Amendment into 100-something pages so that people can have some cliff notes to the whole thing, a guide on how to hack 2A. So background checks, FFLs broken down to explain them, the NFA, breaking down not just the explanation of the NFA, but how that relates to us and things like bump stocks and binary triggers and things that are defined as firearms. Of course, now with 80%ers and 3Ds and ghost guns, we have a section for the Undetectable Firearms Act, antique and primitive firearms, and a little extra space here and there to fill in case we miss things. Next, we get into us, our community, the gun rights lobby, the individuals, the organizations that are national level. We've broken the ones up by state now. We're going to have a timeline chronologically when the organizations came to light, the rallies and the events that we do as far as 2A, the yearly firearms events we do as a community, our past, our SHOT shows, our gun rights policy conferences, the NRA meetings, and others. And then the people that make those organizations and events happen. Authors, we're going to have 72 something books represented, as well as some magazines, the forums, the blogs. Thinking of incorporating some other things in here too. We've got our radio hosts and our podcasters split up. 2A females are getting 2 pages, and that's still not enough. The concealed carry fashion shows that have helped change the face of gun ownership, as well as the DC Project. Then we've got the researchers, right? Attorneys and politicians, a couple of them are on our side. And after the politicians, of course, we get into the antis, the prohibitionists that are against us. And again, a way to visualize the fights that we've dealt with. And again, to recognize FUDs get a bad name. FUDs have done a lot of the fighting in the past. They got that name. They got that attitude from winning fights back in the day. Then we get into our industry, right? So we've talked about what it's like to be a gun owner, all laws we have to deal with, things that we've done to protect ourselves from those laws, the people that did a lot of that stuff, and now we get into the stuff. And this is debatable. I probably could have left the industry out of a book about the Second Amendment. However, Second Amendment advocates are pretty stupid when it comes to our actual history and the stuff, the tools. And I think it's useful for activists to know more about the mechanisms and the people that got us here. Not just for trivia, but because some of that stuff doesn't get applied in arguments that I've witnessed over the years. So that was my intention for putting the industry in here, and also perhaps to appeal to people who might not care about that middle section so much, but might be interested in the firearms laws and then the firearms industry. As far as an overall package, maybe that'll help get the book into more hands. Let me know what you think. So again, visual representation of the timeline, a little explanation of what we're going to get into, and then the instructors, the schools, the places that those schools are at, the ranges, indoor and outdoor, the gunsmithing schools, our U.S. firearms inventors, the international firearms inventors, and then again, a chronological timeline of the industry. It's going to take 4 pages to accomplish that. I'm looking forward. We're scheduling some time, and not even 2-hour blocks, just however long it takes. But we're every other day. We've taken big chunks of this project to dig into, and we'll do that live on the YouTube channel. Then we get into firearms development visually. So this will be more of a timeline visually. Again, for 4 pages to explain the development of the mechanisms. And people say, why would you want an AR-15? Well, it's the end of an evolution of a machine that's incredible. And if you can only see it as a weapon of war, maybe this book will help open your eyes to why there's so much more to it than that. Getting into a visual timeline of the history of ammunition. And since I don't have another section to talk about the development of ammo, I expect to have a little bit about the development of ammunition here. I'm an ammo nerd, so that's my realm of collecting. My realm of interest in firearms has moved to ammunition, so hopefully express some of my interest there, some of the reasons I'm so fascinated with the tiny little things that there's so many more of than the guns that shoot them. Then we get into the shooting sports, something I'm least familiar with out of this whole thing, or one of the things I'm least familiar with, so I could use some help if I'm missing stuff here, but my goal is to show, again, the types of recreation and competition that we're allowed to have with our property. And some of these things go back literally to the beginning of organized sports with our long distance and distance type stuff. Then, of course, the incorporation of youth and the handing down of responsibility and knowledge. There's a lot to the shooting sports. I understand that. Then we can get into a chronological timeline of the shooting sports. I personally think it's an interesting way to help understand the history, see it as a bunch of Legos being laid down as opposed to just a bunch of Legos spread out in a pile. Then we get into the Olympics. There's some important stuff from the Olympics. It interests me because, again, it goes back to those original Olympics had firearms competitions. In fact, there's a lot of firearms in the first ones. Then we get into the Hall of Fames, the competition shooters, at least a sample set, the yearly shooting calendar as far as shooting sports, and then a page on accessibility. Put that in with the shooting sports in between hunting because so much of the accessibility has to do with competition because they're woke, and then hunters because so many of the wounded veterans and kids that have goals to go on a hunt or something are taken hunting. So transitioning into the hunting organization, and then the hunters, again, those FUDs fought for conservation, they fought for land use, they fought for firearms possession back in the days when we were not even around yet. So a little credit to them. Then the collectors, the people that helped keep all the stuff together so that we can remember it, the museums then that house those collections. And that's best for last in my opinion. Museums are one of my favorite parts of the whole industry. Then we thank our Patreons, the people that make it possible for us to spend the time on projects like this that at this point are proving that they have very little interest in. But the population in general has very little interest in. So thanks very much to the less than 200 people that keep us going so that we can do what we're doing. And then some of our past projects, the tours that we've done where we help to share our Second Amendment from around the country, as well as some of the results of our experiences over the years. Back cover is just a table of contents to get you right into the action. That's the project in 12 minutes. That's as far as we're at right now. Every other day we're going to spend most of the day taking out big chunks of it. We're going to be looking at the firearms industry and building all those graphics live. We're going to be digging into largely the firearms instructors, the firearms inventors, all these that are just placeholders now that don't look very organized. Some of these timelines we'll be digging into. We're doing it all live so that, one, you can see that it's real and this isn't being taken care of by a staff of people in Pakistan on Fiverr for $16. But we're doing it here. We're doing the research live so that you can see how we do research. You can help us improve. You can get some tips and tricks. Not that we're so great, but at least you can look over our shoulders. We're willing to let you do that. And then to see the software and the way that we develop the layouts and stuff. If you want to be part of it, if you want to offer some ideas, I don't think I'm better than anybody. I'm just willing, because of our Patreons, to do this as a collaborative project so that we can all gain. We call them 2A workshops so that you can see how to build 2A and hopefully inspire you to be part of the voice out there, the collective voice. With that, I'll quit repeating myself. We'll say thanks again for being part of the project. If you aren't interested in this, but you know somebody who might be, we just need 100 people to turn this spiral-bound draft into, let me grab a book, something like a real paperback book with what they call a perfect binding, where they're glued together and bound in an actual paperback. That's our goal, to have about 100 of these made. To do that, we need about 100 people to jump on board. At this point, when I'm filming this, we're halfway through the project and we have 8 people on board. So if it's not that interesting a project, it'll exist for our Patreons. And if I only need to make 8, I could probably print them on my printer and you'll get a copy with one of these spirals. But if you're interested and you think this is something that might be worth having out there, we'll get them printed with this kind of binding. And the people that participate in the crowdfunding at least get a copy. I don't think this is something that I'm trying to get into Barnes & Noble or onto Amazon necessarily, but let us know in the comments what you think. And for those who participate, we do appreciate it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel. Thanks for watching.
The guys and gals at gunwebsite.com encourage you to take a CCW course every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching gunwebsites.com.